Welcome to the 25th edition of American Railway, in which we follow the fascinating West Virginian section of the CSX Transportation Kanawha Subdivision and explore the tourist lines towards the east of the mountain state marketed by Mountain Rail West Virginia website. The Kanawha Sub runs from Russell, Kentucky, just west of Ashland, which featured in a previous release when we travelled from Ohio River to Lake Erie, through to Montgomery, West Virginia. At Elkins, we observe the Mountain Explorer dinner train, and at Durbin and Cass, we feature trains hauled by geared steam locomotives, one of which starred in the opening sequence. Cass, founded in 1901, is a census-designated place on the Greenbrier River in Pocahontas County. During our visit, Cass Scenic Railroad operated 2 round-trip excursions, a 4-mile journey to Whitaker Station with a 30-minute layover there, and the 11-mile climb to the spectacular views from Bald Knob. This part of the programme includes several filming locations on either side of the track near Cass Station and over the crossing on Black Mountain Road. The white arrow points to the place where the opening shot was filmed, on Gum Road. The empty stock for the 11 o'clock train to Whitaker is about to arrive. Cass number 5 is the oldest operational Shea. It was built in 1905 for the West Virginia Spruce Lumber Company, the original owners of the line and subsidiary of the West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company, to haul lumber to the sawmill in Cass, at one time the largest double-band sawmill in the world. Having 3 cylinders and 3 gear-driven trucks, it is a Class C-80-3 and has always worked this line. According to ShayLocomotives.com, Cass number 3 is another C-80-3 that was built in 1920 for the Eastern Railway and Lumber Company in Centralia, Washington State. Having stood derelict in Snoqualmie for many years, it was restored as a static exhibit here. Built in 1954 for the Texas and New Orleans Railroad, this GP9 is now owned by the Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad. It is coupled with an F7B unit owned originally by the Nashville, Chattanooga and St. Louis Railway in 1950. Number 2 is the only Pacific Coast Shea built to burn wood. Constructed in 1928 for the Mayo Lumber Company of British Columbia, this C-Class PC-13 was converted first to burn oil, then as a coal burner in 1983, the only Shea to have burnt wood, oil and coal. Almost out of sight from Cass Depot was Buffalo Creek and Gawley No. 4, undergoing restoration for use by the DGVR. It is returned to West Virginia from Spencer, North Carolina, where it had been painted and displayed as a replica of Southern Railway No. 604. The CSX Transportation Kanawha Subdivision runs between Russell, Kentucky, just west of Ashland, and Montgomery, West Virginia. Formerly a subdivision of the Huntington East Division, it was absorbed by the Florence Division in 2016. Operations at Ashland, Kentucky, and at Kenova were featured in Volume 7 of the American Railway series in 2009, titled From the Ohio River to Lake Erie. Having covered it previously, we have not included Kenova in detail in this edition, but will show a brief reminder of some of the scenes already released before continuing east to Huntington and Barboursville in this part of the programme. Filming locations chosen in 2009 included next to the CSX Main, where eastbound trains could be viewed crossing the Big Sandy River in the distance, before passing under the Norfolk Southern Kenova District track over the top on a long impressive trestle. A local cat runs over the track in the path of an eastbound coal train crossing the Big Sandy River. Light engines heading west. Southbound autoracks and a manifest. Before moving on to Huntington, we return to 2017 on the Norfolk Southern Kenova District with a northbound stack through Fort Gay, south of Kenova. It is powered by a C44-9W, a C40-9 with the older style cab, and an ES40 DC. The visit to Huntington includes the Amtrak station, vantage points opposite the CSX locomotive shops, and a quick look at the main exhibit at the Chesapeake and Ohio Museum. But first, on the platform by the CSX Huntington headquarters. Following consolidation of CSX operations that included the absorption of the Huntington divisions by the Florence division in 2016, the impressive former C&O depot became considerably underutilised. Reportedly, only 30 or so CSX staff continued to be employed here. A GP38-2 is switching the yard. This loco was built in 1978 for Conrail. Constructed in 1980 for the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, this C30-7 continued in service for CSX until 1999. After retirement, its shell was repainted in support of Marshall University athletics. In September 2017, CSX donated the loco to the Collis P. Huntington Railroad Historical Society. Coal empties are heading west, powered by a pair of AC-44CWs, with 3 dead ES-44AH locos being ferried in the consist. Collis Potter Huntington selected this location for the western terminus of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. The railroad founded Huntington, incorporated 1871, as one of the first planned communities, and it grew rapidly after completion of the railroad 2 years later. These scenes were filmed from the former Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad station. In the evening, we filmed on the opposite side of the track from the Amtrak station. Amtrak's Train 51 Cardinal, the 6:45 a.m. departure from New York to Chicago, is running close to schedule, due to depart Huntington at 9:51 p.m. As usual, it is hauled by a Genesis P42 DC. The following morning we took position on 27th Street opposite the locomotive shop, with a view of 22 locos in the dead line. Inside the works compound are, left to right, former Seaboard System MP15T number 1204, MP15DC number 1141, built for the Louisville and Nashville in 1975, C40-8W number 7782, an SW1500 of 1970 vintage, and another MP15 DC. Going eastwards down the line of 22, the first 5 are SD40-2s, either built for Conrail, Louisville and Nashville, or the Seaboard Coastline. Next, an ex-Chesapeake and Ohio GP39, followed by 3 more SD40-2s. This AC44CW collided with a rockfall near Hazard, Kentucky. Another SD40-2. Former Conrail locos, an SD60I and another SD40-2. We'll pause our journey down the deadline for a westbound manifest to pass, headed by an AC44CW and a rebuilt SD40-3. Tank cars carried a variety of chemicals and substances, including chlorine, liquid petroleum gas, acrylonitrile used in the manufacture of plastics, sodium hydroxide, tin tetrachloride, sulfuric acid, sulfuryl chloride, ethanol benzene or styrene, liquid hydrocarbons, and limestone slurry. Continuing down the deadline, there was another GP39, an SD70 Mac that appears to be cannibalised. The rest were all SD40-2s, originally owned by C&O, Louisville and National, or Conrail, with two exceptions. The city of Minneapolis here began life in 1978 with the Missouri, Kansas and Texas Railway. This unfortunate loco collided with a rock slide near Hoover, Alabama back in 2012, was dug out, re-railed and towed to Huntington, and has been here ever since. The other, at the end of the line in more ways than one, is the oldest, of 1969 vintage, built for Missouri Pacific. The C&O Railroad Museum on Memorial Boulevard keeps this articulated 2662 Mallet, the penultimate Class 1 mainline loco built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1949. A comparatively modern design with superheater, stoker, mechanical lubricators and roller bearings, it was suited to the tight curves of coal lines in West Virginia and Kentucky, where it worked throughout its life. It is a compound loco. The steam expanded first in the smaller rear cylinders, then again in larger forward cylinders. To supply enough air for the frequent heavy braking required by heavy haul mountain railroading, two cross-compound air compressors are mounted on the smokebox door. Driving east on 8th Avenue, we glimpsed chassis system colours gleaming through the roadside trees. The nearest unobstructed view was from 23rd Street. CSX donated B30-7 number 5554 to the Lakeshore Railway Museum in northeast Pennsylvania. It was lovingly restored by workers at Huntington Loco Shop, making cosmetic repairs and applying its original number 8272 and striking chassis system livery. It started its journey north just a few days later. The westbound manifest has two C40-8 locos at the head. Tank cars loaded with diesel. Some of these hoppers were lined with carboline and transported plastic granules. This time, the tank cars are carrying liquefied petroleum gas. unit coal locos were an AC44CW paired with a ballasted heavy variant ES44ACH, also known as ES44AH. About a month after our visit, CSX announced that their management team were undertaking a comprehensive review of the company's operations to improve efficiency, safety, and service to customers across the CSX network. However, it was sad to hear confirmation that, as part of that review, CSX were to eliminate about 70 positions from the Huntington locomotive repair shops. Although 270 positions would remain, the job losses still represent a significant 20% reduction in workforce here. Besides servicing and repainting, Huntington locomotive shops head the railroad's GP38-3 and GP40-3 rebuild programs. Locos rebuilt mainly from the corresponding -2 variants. They used to lead the SD40-3 rebuild program, but it's reported that has been contracted to Wabtec Corporation's Motive Power Industries in Boise, Idaho. The first white tanker carries ethylene oxide, used to sterilise healthcare instruments. The two red tops carry propylene oxide. Chlorine, phosphorus, more propylene oxide. Sodium hydroxide solution, chlorine, and liquefied petroleum gas in the rest of these black tanks. The white tank on the tail contains hydrochloric acid. East of Huntington, cameras were positioned on the Kanawha Sub, east and west of the junction for the coal branch that heads south to Peach Creek and Logan. We will include a brief reminder of previous release scenes from 2009 at Ona. We waited almost 3 hours for a train. The AC44CW on point is paired with a 1-year-old Tier 4 emissions compliant ET44AH. Following the Kanawha Sub East, filming locations were at Hurricane, Scott Depot and St Albans, before waiting hours in Charleston with no joy. Of course, during the overnight stay we heard a few while trying to sleep. Then nothing again in the morning before finding a maintenance of way train through Marmet at midday, so our journey continued to the eastern edge of the subdivision at Montgomery and dipped into the new river sub at Deepwater. In Hurricane, cameras were positioned near the picnic benches next to the track in the city and by a grade crossing on the eastern edge. Consecutive grade crossings were utilised at Scott Depot. Yes, we had a very long wait for a train through Hurricane, so looked for other things of interest. The lead loco is a ballasted heavy ES44AH, working with a newer Tier 4 compliant ET44AH. Surveyors commissioned by George Washington noted that the site looked as though it had been struck by a hurricane, and the name stuck, although it's said that some locos pronounce the name Hurricane. Apparently there's a post office less than 17 miles away named Tornado. Maybe that's pronounced Tornado. The population of Hurricane is estimated to have risen 100-fold since the 1880s, to the current level of about 6,600. This train had 99 loaded hoppers. A pair of Gevos is coming. Scott Depot is an unincorporated community in Putnam County. Only 87 coal hoppers in this one. At St Albans, one camera has a view of the bridge over the Coal River, while two more are either side of the track near 2nd Street. When laid out in 1816, it was named Philippi after an early settler, Philip Thompson, but the name was changed to Colesmouth after Samuel Cole, who was credited with the discovery of the area and river bearing his name, spelt C-O-L-E. However, current maps show the river spelt C-O-A-L. When incorporated in 1868, it took the name Kanawha City, but was renamed 4 years later by H.C. Parsons of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad after his birthplace, St Albans, Vermont, which in turn was named after St Albans, Hertfordshire in England. This train is slightly longer at 111 hoppers. Cameras were at consecutive crossings in Marmet before a brief stop at Winnifred Junction Yard. After that, one camera was positioned at East Bank while the other waited at Crown Hill. Marmet has a population of approximately 1,500. Well, this was one of the reasons we saw nothing through Charleston. Check out the chassis system's caboose behind the loco. This 1967 vintage Kanawha Rail Corporation SW1500 was in the exchange sidings at Winifred Junction. "90 chemical hoppers are heading west. With an FMC hopper in the rake, it is possible that the train would carry substances used in the manufacture of herbicides. Incorporated in 1889, East Bank took its name from its situation on the Kanawha River. Today it has a population estimated just over 900. Crown Hill is an unincorporated community and railroad location. After taking respite from the rain in the shelter of the Amtrak station in Montgomery, we dipped into the New River subdivision at Deepwater. Paired with the AC44CW on the head is an ET44AH number 3264. Montgomery is at the eastern boundary of the CSX Kanawha Subdivision. Situated on the banks of the Kanawha River, most of the city is in Fayette County and the rest in Kanawha County. In the early years, its name changed several times. Initially known as Coal Valley Post Office in 1876, it changed first to Montgomery's Landing after one of the first settlers, then to Coal Valley, then again to Cannelton in 1890. However, when incorporated a year later, they settled on the name Montgomery. Late 19th century expansion was aided by the construction of the Kanawha and Michigan Railroad across the river to connect with the Virginian Railway at nearby Deepwater, our next port of call. In the early part of the 20th century, 26 different coal operations shipped through Montgomery. Montgomery Amtrak station is served by the Cardinal 3 times per week, calling at 7:50 p.m. heading for Chicago and at 8:50 a.m. on the way to New York. '97, '98, '99, 100 coal hoppers. Arriving at Deepwater, the local was waiting in the siding in the pouring rain, expecting trains to pass before it would be released. About an hour later, having spoken to the train crew, a high rail stopped by our cameraman to warn him to be alert as there were reported landslips in the area. He set off east towards one instant, while the local was to creep west under caution. In charge of the local was a GP40-2 assisted by a road slug based on a GP30. On the tail is a caboose in Operation Lifesaver livery. The Norfolk Southern track that has crossed the river passes over the CSX on the bridge here. Returning to the tourist lines of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, we will view the dinner train being prepared at Elkins. While in the area, we have included a very brief visit to the Appalachian Ohio Railroad in Barboursville, before seeing more of the Shays working on the Cass Scenic Railroad. But our first calling point will be Durbin. The Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Scenic Railroad follows the course of the Greenbrier River to a terminus inaccessible by road. We positioned our cameras in Durbin to capture the 2:30 departure of the Durbin Rocket. Cass Scenic Railroad No. 6 was providing power for the push-pull operation of the Rocket. This is a Heisler gear-driven locomotive. Charles L. Heisler patented the design for a two-truck loco in 1892, featuring two cylinders canted inward in a V-twin arrangement, to power a central longitudinal drive shaft connected to the outer axle of each truck through beveled gears. External connecting rods were used to power the inner axles. 5 years later, Heisler received a patent for the three-truck loco design, like No. 6 here. The tender truck driven by a line shaft geared to the main drive shaft, again with external conrods to power both axles.
Engine 6, conductor 6. Mr. Bennett, everyone's on board, the platform's up, you are clear south. Take her south.
You will have noticed the Durbin rocket passing a switcher in the background. DGVR number 5 is believed to be a GE 44 tonner, which could be easily seen from the road. A number of diesel-powered tourist trains run from Elkins, including the new Tigard Flyer, the Cheat Mountain Salamander and the Mountain Explorer dinner train, being prepared here at the depot. Besides being the station for the Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad here, the depot also houses the Elkins Welcome Centre. Constructed in this Romanesque revival style by the Western Maryland Railway Company in 1908, it served as a hub for the coal and lumber industries. The pair of EMD FP7A locos that will work the dinner train were both built in 1952. Number 243 began life with the Canadian Pacific, but also served Quebec Central and the Montreal Urban Community Transport Corporation. Number 67, the older of the two, was delivered to the Clinchfield Railroad. Due to mergers, it also worked for the Seaboard System Railroad and CSX. Both locos moved to the West Virginia Central, which is now operated by the Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad. The Appalachian and Ohio Railroad operates on 158 miles of track between Grafton and Cohen, West Virginia, and connects with the Elk River Railroad at Burnsville, the line running west from Burnsville Junction. Passing through in 2009, we stumbled upon a pair of CEFX SD9043 Max leased by the ANO departing the depot. We were surprised to see these beavers near a busy road in town, feeding their offspring in the little Kenova River. The locals seemed more surprised that we stopped to film them. For the closing scenes in this programme, we return to the Cass Scenic Railroad, where the 11 AM round trip to Whitaker is arriving back at Cass Depot. The final spectacle will be the 1:30 trip to Whitaker, storming the climb over the Gum Road crossing. At this distance, about 625 feet from the camera, you'll see the whistle blow about half a second before the sound reaches the microphone. A 112-year-old locomotive deserves a lot of care and attention. It certainly appeared that they took every opportunity to check her over. We were told that the gear lubrication, being a total loss system, required checking and filling before every journey, and that the layovers in Whitaker were also scheduled for that purpose. As the train is made ready for departure, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this journey exploring West Virginia. We trust that you have enjoyed the huge variety of motive power on the CSX Kanawha Subdivision and the fascinating gear-driven Shay and Heisler steam locomotives, still hard at work in the mountains of West Virginia.